Sylvan Watcher faction just came out not that long ago. It's time for me to cover them in the Faction Wars in more depth. And so I'm going to show you how to do it without any legendaries and take down this boss. Welcome, I'm the Deadwoodjedi. Today we're going to be looking at the Sylvan Watchers faction in Faction Wars. And it's the newest faction, obviously, and it's a rather difficult one, primarily because we don't have a lot of champions to choose from. There's not the plethora of epics and rares that you find in the other factions, making, building a team a lot more flexible. We're a little bit stuck in what we have as options available, but I do feel like there are some solid options here because most of the champions in this faction are pretty decent. They're not spectacular, all of them, but they're all very useful in one way or another. So I do feel like there's more than a couple ways to go about doing this. Now, I haven't built out a bunch of different ways, but I thought I would try using one. We're going to use the new tree guy that was available in the Fusion, in case you got an extra copy of him, so you can see how that works. But otherwise, I have a bunch of epics available here on this team. It's a very easy run with the team I'm bringing in, and I think that obviously there's going to be other ways you can do this without having quite as good a champions or maybe quite as good a gear and still be successful. Now, quick caveat, right? We're going to go through the bosses, we're going to go through the champions in the faction, so you have options available for you, and we're going to obviously showcase my team and how I went through it. But I am using pretty decent gear, a little better than what I typically would try to do for this. The problem is I just don't have as bad a gear as I used to. It's just gotten better over time. And so I'm a little bit confined in how much I can dumb this down. So just kind of keep that in mind. I don't have all the options like I did in the past to make it more, free to play, recognizable as far as stats go. So obviously you're going to want to try to hit these stats as best you can. But if this is the last faction you have to do anyway, just strip your gear off your best champions and make it happen, right? Anything's worth getting Lydia. So that, I feel like these are stats that are attainable for people. Nothing crazy, no 100,000 HP kind of thing. So anyway, let's go ahead. We're going to go ahead and look at the bosses so you know what we're facing as we go through this. And then we'll go ahead and look at some of the options that we have available before we do the run. If you enjoyed today's video, don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss the next one that comes out. If you enjoyed today's music, we have that link to the SoundStripe down below in the pinned comment and description of this video, and you can use my code Deadwoodjedi and save 15%. And of course, if you want account work, help with your dungeon teams, clan boss, etc., my team is more than ready to go for you. All you got to do is visit my website, deadwoodjedi.com. All right, stage 7 boss, obviously we should be able to just whip through this with some strong champions. We don't need to get into it too big. Basically, he's got some poisons, some true fear, some poisons, some HP burns on the attacker when you're hit. It's the incinerator. It's not a challenge. It's easy to do. You'll get through it. Stage 14 is one of those ones that I really do like to see. It's the Protector. This is the one that will revive his allies. This, again, shouldn't be a huge issue for you. Really, all you need to do is focus on the boss. Don't worry about the ads on the side. Just focus on the boss and take him down. So just bring damage and you'll be in good shape. And then we have stage 21, one of the tougher bosses in this game, the Dueler. Absolutely hate this boss. He's really difficult. Big thing is that he's got an A2 that will cleanse him of all of his debuffs, and then he's going to put True Fear on one of your champions, stun on all the rest, and then give himself an extra turn. It's a debilitating thing. He also has a passive that will increase his turn meter every time he loses HP. That's, again, debilitating. And then, of course, his A1 ignores defense and it works off your enemy max HP. So he hits extremely hard. This is somebody that can one-shot or two-shot your champions quite easily. So we have to find ways to mitigate this. What do? Well, we try to bring in things to help absorb that damage. So things like shield can work really well. Shields are a great way to deal with this. Block debuffs can help prevent those crippling debuffs like the stun and the true fear. Another option that we have available to us is would be Guardian gear. It's a great way to kind of share the damage and help absorb it and prevent anybody from getting one-shotted. And then, of course, revive is always an option for you here. But those are kind of a lot of the primary ways that we're going to have to go through to deal with the boss himself. As far as the waves, typical things. We want CC skills. We want, AoE decrease defense if we can find it. And if we can't, we still want to be able to deal some kind of damage along the way. And so that's kind of the focus here with this one, right? Nothing too crazy, but it is a difficult boss. So if you struggle with it, that's nothing to be ashamed of. It's a tough one. Okay, let's go ahead and dive in here for the boss and see what we can't do. Now, the waves on this one are not super tricky, so I don't have to worry too much. It will get away from me if I'm not paying too much attention, especially in the second wave where there is a man-eater available in there. That's always who I'm trying to take out because I want to get rid of the unkillable ability from people in the block debuffs. But generally, this is going to be pretty easy going, right? It can just let it go, especially with Masiliac. I'm just going to let him run, throw out his poisons, and do his thing. And it shouldn't be too difficult to get through the waves at all, to get through any of it, honestly. But then once we get to the boss, it's a different story. And you can see already we lost Ruella. This is where Tree Shield is going to be really helpful for us, being able to revive. Normally, I would, want to build Ruella to survive a little bit more, but because we have that reviver in there, I'm not feeling the need to do that nearly as much. And with Duodan having that taunt, it makes it a lot less needful for me to go through and build her up. So it's kind of a nice little combo. Obviously, there's other champions because she dies so much. There's definitely other champions we could bring in instead of her, but she's pretty solid. Anyway, let's look at the champions that I am bringing in. You can see the stats that I'm putting on them, and then we'll hopefully be at the boss by then. Okay, let's start with a look at Tree Shield Knot. This is actually a surprisingly good champion for this. He brings a fair amount to the table, but I got him in regen. I've got him in whatever the speed and resistance build is. I don't have a crazy build on him. It's just he's going decently fast, 200 speed. I do have him with a good amount of HP, like 56,000, and he's got 300 plus resistance. That's good, but you'll notice no mastery, so I did try to tone it down a little bit. He's well built for sure, but he's not crazy. But again, we're focusing on giving enough HP, not worrying about the defense as much because the boss is going to ignore it anyway. The resistance is going to be solid, not for the boss, but for the waves, hopefully. And then we got Ruella. And Ruella here is going to be obviously one of our primary debuffers as well as a solid damage dealer. I have her going fast, which I definitely encourage for all your champions. We try to aim for about 200 speed or more. 228 is definitely more. Good accuracy, probably overkill there. I try to build her damage, but obviously we didn't even get 100% crit rate. Attack's not super high. She's super squish, only like 25,000 HP. This is why when you have somebody that can revive, you don't have to worry as much about that. That's why Tree Shield is such a clutch champion for this. He's actually he's almost an epic as far as how good of a rare he is. And so definitely that makes it a lot easier to put somebody like Ruella into this comp. There's definitely other champions we can use instead of her, but for this build, I think she's actually really, really good. We have White Dryad Nia, who is one of my favorite champions. I don't have her built particularly well, I don't think. She, is built with damage for some reason. This is just kind of a build I had around. Honestly, with White Dryad Nia, I want to build her for sustain and protection. So high HP, high defense, high speed. I did not do that. Absolutely the worst build ever. But it does go to show you can still have success even if you don't build them particularly well. And so just kind of keep that in mind as we go through here. Her main thing is healing everybody, the ally protection, keeping everybody alive. And then we got Duodan the Runic. I decided to give him a curse set, just add a little hex because why not? Try something a little bit different. I really like Duodan. He's going to be really good as far as cleansing our champions of debuffs. That's going to be really helpful. If he is the one that's true feared and he does get a counterattack in, that's going to be really awesome to be able to cleanse those stuns away since we're not blocking any of the debuffs. But 100% crit rate just so we can have that. Some resistance because obviously he's just taking hits and he's not, he's got that taunt, which is really, really helpful, especially against the boss actually. Lots of HP, so he can survive that. All that stuff is actually really, really crucial for us here. One option would be to put him in like regen gear and guardian gear. I think all those would be really good options for him, but I think this is going to work really well. We do have ally protection in the team and revive if things go wrong. And then very last, we got Misiliac Priest Ornn, who's just fantastic champion, especially for this. All the poisons, we're basically just making sure everybody survives so that we can let the poisons do the work. This is our damage dealer for this comp. If you don't have Misiliac, it's going to be a lot tougher for you because raw damage in this faction is not great as far as the epics and rares go. So I really like Misiliac. I definitely would recommend bringing him in. If you don't have him, it's just going to be a slower grind for you, but still something that you should be able to do. Okay, now we're at the boss here. And like I said, I can really run this on auto. The key here is twofold. One, ally protection from White Dryad Nia. That's going to be huge, right? The strengthen buff is actually a really nice one as well. The other is Duodan with his taunt ability. It works perfectly for this single target boss like we have. Now, obviously, like we just lost White Dryad, having Tree Shield in there to be able to revive is massive. And it would be really hard to be successful without that. One of the things though with the reviver, because this boss does hit so hard, is timing out that revive. So I just let it run on auto and he just revived right away. One of the things I'm actually gonna have to pay attention to here is how that goes, because honestly, I should have waited till we got closer to the end or until I knew the taunt was out to make sure that we avoid dying before we were ready to kill the boss, right? Like White Dryad did right there. So if I have to, I'll jump back in with break the auto to get the revive time just right, but hopefully that won't be the case here. We do need White Dryad though. She's actually really helpful for us in a multiple ways here. Oh, we're one more turn, so I need to survive one more turn, guys. There we go. Okay, what is this here? The shield, perfect. I think that's actually really good for us. And we did too much damage. There, you can see how it's supposed to work. Let's see if I can't do this right. Okay, now we're here at the boss. Now, I did not time my skills perfectly. You can see I've even lost Ruella along the way. That's fine. We'll be fine here. Not even an issue, right? I don't think so. One thing I am going to do, I'm going to wait for the boss to take his first turn here. I think that'll be probably for the best here. And hopefully I can do this little reset of skills. I think this is actually going to be really helpful for us here. So I'm going to... some poisons. Turn meter reduction from Ruella is really nice. We are going to need to, this is where it gets tricky. Gotta balance it out. Oh, we're so far away from having the revive. We just did it. And we're going to fail again because I'm an idiot. Okay, talking about these champions and the Sylvan Watchers, obviously the legendaries, some of them are good, some of them aren't. It's a pretty mediocre group right now, but there's only 7 of them, so it's not really like a lot of options. And the epics, there's not that many of them either. There's hardly any champions in this faction, period. So it's going to be a little bit difficult trying to make your teams work. You're going to need to rely a little bit more on gear than you would normally. That said, there are definitely some solid champions in this faction that you can use. You know, Duodan, I think, is fantastic. I think Taunt in general, this being the only faction I think that has Taunt, definitely something I would lean on if you can. It's going to help with the boss because he is single target. So that can be a really good option. If you have somebody like Mistrat Dithey, I think with his AoE decreased defense is a no-brainer type of choice. Ornn is really, really good with the poisons, HP base, so you can build him tanky. Ruella, actually, I was surprised at how good, but because she has turn meter reduction on the A1, so many debuffs on the A2, turn meter buff on the A3, brings a lot to the table that really works well for bosses. White Dryad Nia obviously is a no-brainer as well, but this is a difficulty. There's not a lot of CC in this class, right? You know, we got some decreased speed and turn meter stuff, a little bit of that, but in general, there's not a lot of like offensive things, right? Creodan is one of the few that I do recommend, right? He's got that freeze ability. If you can have him, he's going to make this a lot easier for you. But in general, there's not a lot going on here that's going to make this easy for you. So, you know, really you're going to have to rely on your sets to get any CC in, or you're just going to have to tank it out. And thankfully, this does seem a faction that's good at tanking it out. You know, I think Wyronon can be really good for you. Kellen, even Lochwain Creodan, maybe not Lockwind, but Creodan for sure. Some of these champions can be really, really helpful for you. So I would just kind of pick your 5. The big things are, though, if you can, Ornn is going to be really good as a damage dealer. You can go a little bit slower that way. And Nia is really, really good. If you have her, you're definitely going to want that. But if you don't have those 2, it can be a little bit difficult because you're going to be, or those 3 is, because you're going to be a little bit squishy. Thankfully, these champions down here, the rares are actually pretty solid. Kate, I don't put much stock in. Even Tierlac, I don't really put much stock in. But I really like Not. I really like Margrave. Rehab, I think has... I don't like Rehab. I'm going to be honest. I don't like Rehab. I mean, I'm sure there, he's okay. He's not good. Don't use him. But Margrave, I think, has some potential, mainly because he's an ally protection champion. And against this boss, that is gold. On top of that, he's got some AoE with the provoke, the CC stuff, right? I like that a lot. Some continuous heals. There's a lot to really like about Greenhawk. And the champion I'm showing, Tree Shield Knot, is really, really good with the revive and the healing. So he also has a decreased attack, things that are going to be really helpful for you. So I do feel like there are options here, even budget options with Margrave and Knot, if you don't have a lot of the epics that I think are really going to be good for this. But there's definitely a few ways to go about doing this. Against this boss in particular, stage 21, I highly, highly recommend using Guardian gear when you have the option. Healing is paramount, and it's going to be really hard to heal up because this guy hits super hard. So he's a 1 or 2 shot kind of, boss. So you're going to need to be able to heal up a lot. The not having him to revive your champions will be really, really valuable. Obviously, I'm excluding all the legendaries, which will make this tons easier if you have some of them. But without them, yeah, I would be, definitely would want to bring in Knot, definitely would want to bring in Margrave. I would be looking hard at Duodan, Ornn, White Dryad, Nia, and then either Ruella or Daihi would be the next 2 options I'd really want to bring in. If you have Creodan, I don't have him, so I don't think of him first off. But if you have him, he's going to be a top-notch person to bring in too, because he also brings in CC. Maybe not for the boss. So if you can get through to the boss anyway, it's maybe not an issue. But it'll be really helpful in the waves, especially as you're climbing up in this faction. Well, I couldn't do it. I tried. I couldn't do it. But I tried. I tried to make it happen. Anyway, guys, such is life. Sometimes you do it perfectly, sometimes you don't. I think it's very obvious how this should work, right? How you want to go using Tree Shield, Oak, whatever to make that happen. There are other ally protectors in this, and that's, some other champions that are available that would be really good as well. And I think that can help actually with the survivability. I don't even think you need a reviver to be able to have success on this boss, but you can see how you're supposed to do it, and that's kind of the goal. So hopefully this was very helpful for you guys. I did my best. I did what I could. Anyway, guys, that's all we got for today. So don't forget to subscribe if you enjoyed this work. If you got something from this, please hit that notification bell. And until next we meet, I'm the Deadwood Jedi.